Welcome to Lydia's Plate. I'm a stay-at-home mom who is homesteading together with my husband and 4 kids. We do gardening, house cleaning, all the homesteading stuff, baking bread, experimenting with gluten-free foods for one of our kids, animals, and the like. So if you like that kind of stuff, stay tuned and welcome to our channel. Hey there everyone! Today I'm making pumpkin cinnamon buns. Now the first thing I'm doing is putting some hot scalded milk into my mixing bowl and then some sugar and some yeast. I know this is instant yeast, but I always like to let it proof a little bit just in case, I don't know what, if maybe it's a bad batch or whatever the reason it's gone old. I just like to know that my yeast is good before I start putting all the other ingredients in there. So I'll give it anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, or if I'm in a really big hurry, sometimes I'll just give it long enough till I see a few bubbles, just so that I know it's working. So now I'm going to add in all the rest of the ingredients because it has proofed already, and that would be salt and eggs and pumpkin and lard. But I'll leave the recipe for you in the description box down below. Alright, so that is the bulk of all the little things. Now I'm going to start adding in the flour. So here I'm just kind of touching the dough to see if it's sticky or not. Now this goes way back to when I made a video about buns. So it's that same idea. You just want to touch it and make sure that it's kind of a little bit sticky, but not actually sticking to your fingers. If you're having to peel dough off your fingers, it is still way too sticky. So there we go. Now it's ready. I'm going to quickly clean off my dough hook here a little. And then this is going to sit in the oven with just the oven light on for however long it takes until that bowl is full and mushrooming over with dough. In the meantime, I'm going to get my workspace all cleaned up here so that the island is ready and available for rolling out the dough. Alright, so that has well mushroomed over, and I'm going to get ready here to roll it out. This is going to make a lot of pumpkin cinnamon buns. I'm going to take my rings off because I really don't want to have to clean dough out of my rings. And there we go, knock it down. And I'll save you having to watch me clean out every little spot around the bowl there. So here we go, I have floured my surface and I'm gonna shake all this dough out of here. You don't want to have your surface too floured because then when you want to roll up your dough later, if you have too much flour on there, you won't get the ends to seal. You'll see later what I mean. But you need a little bit of flour because otherwise the dough just sticks onto your surface and then it's very difficult. So you've got to kind of have that balance there. So here is a good example where it was starting to stick a little too much, so I peeled it back and just brushed a little more flour under there. Alright, so this is all rolled out. Now we're going to start with the next step. There are multiple ways to do this. Some people melt the butter. I just spread it on. This butter is room temperature, so it's spreading very nicely. So I'm just going to spread this all over. That's how I'm used to doing it. And when it comes to your sugar, which is the next step, there are multiple ways of doing that too. Some people use white sugar, some people use brown sugar, some people mix the brown sugar and cinnamon together first and then sprinkle it over. Whichever way you choose to do it is totally up to you, possibly how you grew up. If you've never made cinnamon buns before, do what makes sense to you, I'd say. I like to sprinkle it over, that way I get an even coating just the way I want it. Now once I've got quite a bit sprinkled on here and I've kind of got it all spread out, I'm going to start breaking up the clumps of sugar just with my fingers. I'm just gonna kind of squish it between my fingers and get this all spread out. Once that's done, I'm gonna start putting my spices over. Now normally I would just put cinnamon over, but because I'm making pumpkin cinnamon buns, I decided to finish off the rest of my pumpkin pie spice, and seeing as that didn't cover the entire surface, I did finish off the rest with just regular cinnamon. Maybe if I would have paid more attention later while I was eating them, I would have been able to tell the difference from a pumpkin cinnamon bun that had pumpkin pie spice versus just cinnamon, but I didn't pay attention. They were all yummy. I'm also being careful not to spread the brown sugar and the spices too close to the edges. I want to go close enough so that anybody who gets an edge piece definitely gets flavor and yumminess, but too close and I won't be able to seal my ends later. And now, because this piece of dough is so large, I'm going to cut it in half here lengthwise because I don't want massive cinnamon buns. I actually want multiple different sizes because that way, you know, if you just want a little one, you can have a little one. If you want a really big one, you can have a big one. That way people don't have to feel bad if they're cutting one in half, because I'm bringing these to a gathering. So, and even for us, you know, for breakfast or whatever, sometimes you're just a little bit hungry and the next time you're very hungry. So I just like the variety of sizes. Now rolling it up here, this can be a little tricky sometimes. I had floured the surface just enough so it was rolling fairly well. I did at one point have to get the scraper and scrape the dough off the island a little bit, but it wasn't bad, like the dough didn't get damaged or anything. I just needed to coax it along a little bit. So this is where if I had too much flour on here, the dough would not stick when I'm pinching that end shut. You want to pinch it shut just so that your cinnamon bun doesn't unroll on you. So there we go, that's all done. One log is done, on to the next one. So as I'm rolling up these pumpkin cinnamon buns, I'm also trying to get a nice tight roll. I don't want to roll them too tight that they're like, wound tighter than a spring or something like that. I don't want them that tight, because then when you start cutting them and placing them on your pan as they rise, the center of the bun will just kind of pop up, kind of like a flower coming into bloom, and I don't want that. I want to have nice level cinnamon buns. So I don't want to roll them too tight, but I don't want to roll them too loose either. So it's a little bit of trial and error. You just kind of learn, but you know, if you give it a try and you think that you've rolled them too loose, you'll know for next time. And it really is not going to affect the taste. I have had some times where I've made cinnamon buns and I thought I had pinched and sealed all the ends and something started to unroll a little bit, and you know what, those ones were still just as tasty as all the rest. rolled up. Now we are ready to start cutting them. I choose to use thread. It doesn't matter what color, and Mark has made it very long and we have doubled it up. It's just so much stronger that way. Some people use dental floss, and I made the comment to somebody once, well, don't you notice like the minty flavor if you use minty flavored dental floss? And they said no, you don't notice it at all. So if that's what you have at home and that's what you want to use, go for it. It definitely is nice and strong, but I find that thread doubled up works really well too. It doesn't rip on me either. It makes such a nice clean cut, and you don't squish the bun at all like if you're trying to cut it with a knife. You're not misshaping it as you try to cut it with a knife. The thread or the dental floss, whatever you want to use, it just works really, really well for cutting these cinnamon buns. As I bring both ends of the thread up, I'm making sure that it's already touching before I come across. Like I kind of bring the thread up and make an X with it, and then I pull it tight so that it actually slices through. That way I'm getting a nice clean slice, and I'm not kind of starting to cut through one part of the bun with one end of the thread and different part and then not lining up, you know. I just kind of make sure that the threads cross first into an X and then pull them through. Kind of like when you cross your shoelaces or whatever when you want to start tying a knot. It's kind of that idea, but you don't actually tie a knot. You're just touching the threads together. I know this looks like a lot of cinnamon buns, but really, by the time I think the week was halfway through, these guys were all gone. They were so yummy. Now, while I was making those pumpkin cinnamon buns, Mark was finishing up lunch for me. One of our kids had requested waffles and sausage, and I had vanilla egg custard left over from making angel food cake. So that's what we had for lunch, and so now I'm just cleaning everything up. The fireplace has been roaring and the kitchen is warm from making the sausage and the waffles, so they're gonna rise pretty quickly. Sometimes I would cover them with towels like I do with buns or bread, but today I didn't. The house was so warm and I wasn't concerned with any dust or anything floating over them, so I didn't bother. So here I'm just checking on the cinnamon buns, and yeah, they look good, they're rising, so I'm gonna keep cleaning up. The dishwasher is almost full, just gonna find a few last stray dishes, get it filled up all the way, and then I can get it running. Of course, I do have to do a little puzzling here first. But I got it all in, and now I'm ready to get it started. So to my understanding, a wooden rolling pin should never actually be submerged or soaked in water, so I just give that a quick wipe. And now this island is going to need several wipes. Dough is always a little bit greasy, or whatever you want to call that, and there was a little bit of dough that did also stick to the island, so I'm going to give this several washes here to make sure that it's all the way clean. Oh, look at those pumpkin cinnamon buns. Yummy. Alright, so they have risen enough, and we're going to start baking this first pan. They only take about 20 minutes, so not very long at all. And in the meantime, I'm going to start getting all my hot pads ready so that I can just whip them out of the oven to cool and start with the next pan in. Here we go, pan number 1 is done baking. Now, one trick somebody taught me a few years ago is if you're unsure if your cinnamon buns are done, because they can look nice and brown and golden like this, you could take just like any kind of knife. I'm using just a butter knife here. And you can pull apart the dough between 2 cinnamon buns, and if it looks completely cooked, like what a baked bun looks like, then you can be rest assured that those cinnamon buns are done. If you put the knife in there and you pull apart and it looks doughy, like raw dough, then they're going to need to bake longer. But generally, especially cinnamon buns of this size, because they're not like the really massive huge ones, 20 minutes, they look like this, they're done. So here we are the next day, and I am getting these ready for the gathering. So these cinnamon buns have fully cooled. I'm going to put some onto this bigger pan here that's empty, kind of in front of us right now. And I am just mixing together some brown sugar, cinnamon, vanilla, and cream. I will actually put measurements for you in the description box, but oh boy, I don't know if I ever measure this anymore. It's different every time, and I just wing it because it's really good, and I haven't gone wrong with it yet. And I change it up too. Sometimes I'll cook it first, Today specifically, I knew that there was going to be a turkey roasting in the oven at the gathering where we were going, and so I was thinking of just popping these into the oven once the oven had been turned off and letting them sit in there and warm and soak up all that sauce while we ate supper, which is exactly what happened, and they were so delicious. Even though I knew I had all those other cinnamon buns sitting in all those other containers, I still didn't want to end up making too much sauce. My fridge was pretty full, so I didn't want to have to store any. But that also meant that I did not make enough sauce for the first batch. So here we go again, round 2. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you've learned something new, and I hope you've liked this video. Please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't yet, hit that bell if you want to be notified every time we post a new video. Thank you so much for subscribing and for liking and commenting. I really do appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye, guys.